Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again. Team selector time for the game against Nottingham Forest this Sunday in the Premier League. The final game before the October international break, which is quite frustrating given Chelsea's form. It's probably one of those international breaks that doesn't come at the best time given the sense of momentum and positivity building up around Stamford Bridge, but still the chance to walk into that international break before a really tough run of fixtures that we spoke about the other day in the best way possible. It will leave Chelsea in a really good place in the Premier League. The confidence will be up and the vibes will be good, which we want to maintain under Enzo Maresca this season. Please do like the show if you're enjoying it. Subscribe really does help out the channel as we look to get bigger and better towards the end of 2024. Let me know your thoughts and predictions for the game as well in the comments as we go along here. And a massive thank you to the guys at Alloy Collectors for supporting the show. Link in the description box below if you want to pick yourself up a Chelsea Metal home shirt, whether that is this season's kit, the home and away kit, the goalkeeper kit, or get yourself a retro run from the 97-98 kit to celebrate and reminisce about some great Chelsea European memories. Definitely worth getting. As I've already said, I think it's a great idea for a Chelsea fan or family member, maybe as a gift as we head towards the festive season, if they've got a birthday coming up, or if you're just someone you want to treat yourself, you want to get one, put it on your desk, put it on your shelf, maybe a collection of Chelsea stuff. I think it is a real quality and thoughtful collectible that you can also personalize with the name and number you want. So definitely link in the description box below. Use my code at checkout, SonOfChelsea, to get 15% off your order at Alloy Collectors. So Maresca, the press conference, there wasn't a lot. There was a brief suggestion that maybe Reece James might be back, but that was shot down very quickly. Luckily, in terms of injuries, everyone else is fit, which is really good news. And that's one of the things that I think Maresca has obviously benefited from so far this year. Yeah, we've had a few injury problems, but compared to this time last year, I mean, it's chalk and cheese, really. We're in a much better and healthier place with our squad, touchwood, and let's hope that continues as we head into the hectic and intense winter months of this season. But I feel like, obviously, we've talked in recent weeks about certain key positions in Nkunku versus Jackson, or, you know, maybe in midfield, are you bringing back Romeo Lavia, who, of course, is now back from injury. But I think the big question now is, will any of the B team, which Maresca, of course, doesn't like, he says explicitly in kind of the press conference that he doesn't view it as two teams, but it's kind of hard not to given his selection in recent weeks. But I guess a way he can disprove that as we get into this game is if we see some of that B team or Conference League team who performed well last night against Ghent make a start in this game. And I feel like that's going to be an interesting thing as we go through the rhythm of the Thursday Conference League game into the Sunday Premier League game, and how that fluctuates, because at the moment, obviously, it's one kind of mood because the form's good, so it's kind of hard to see that changing that much, because if both teams are performing well, you'll just stick with the team that's performing well in the Premier League. But if that form changes, obviously, that's going to give more of a chance, injury and suspension to the B team. But we'll talk about that, because there may be one or two positions that may be more contestable than I first anticipated when I was preparing this preview. But let's take a look at Nottingham Forest. They've had a decent start to the year, nothing incredible, but in terms of where they have been in recent years, of course, battling off relegation, it's been a stable and actually quite impressive at times. I mean, the biggest thing for them this year so far has been that unbeaten run, which did end against Fulham last week. They did miss, I think, Morgan Gibbs-White, who I suspect will be back in the starting 11 for this game. They played a 4-4-2, which isn't really their standard formation. They're more accustomed to playing kind of that 4-2-3-1 that they did use successfully at Anfield. And obviously, from a Chelsea perspective, the big talking point, or at least the name that will crop up narrative-wise, is Callum Hudson-Odoi, who has already scored against Chelsea after moving. He looked like he was on a mission back in May when Chelsea visited Forest to prove everyone wrong, or to make Chelsea pay for letting him go. And he's obviously had a really strong start to life there, and I think it's been a great move for him. I still think it's absolutely criminal that he was sold for $3 million in the current market, given what he offers. And he's a real threat, especially in transition. And I think that is the way Forest are going to approach this game. Although they do have some individual talent, I think, you know, Ward-Prowse, I think, is a decent get in central midfield, experienced central midfielder. But of course, from set piece, we know how dangerous he can be. In terms of a back four, they very much settled on Ola Aina, of course, from Cobham, Milenkovic, Murillo, who has been linked to Chelsea, and Moreno. That very much has been their back four so far this season. They're very much sticking with that. Ward-Prowse and Anderson, or Ward-Prowse and Yates, has kind of been the double six on the midfield pivot in front of that defence. And then you've usually had Gibbs-White Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, Dominguez as well has played a little bit out wide for them as well. And Wood is still scoring Premier League goals at a pretty regular rate. He's had a decent start to the year up top as well. They've also got Awonyi, who I think is a decent striker as well. So there is good talent across the team, and I think Nuno Espirito Santo has always been famed for his defensive structures. I think in the latter years of Wolves, I think it became a little bit more predictable, and maybe the pendulum of defence versus attack really limited, especially once they lost some of their best players. I think the difficulty here for Santo is I think he's got a good structure to Forest. They look like a much more stable team. They look like a team that isn't going to be overrun, and they're going to be able to go to some grounds and make things tricky. They won at Stamford Bridge last year, of course under a different coach, but they won here last year. And of course that win at Anfield was amazing really for the Forest. It really was a landmark win. So I feel for Chelsea, the concern will be, especially in transition, I think the speed and trickery of Alanga, Hudson-Odoi. I think Hudson-Odoi is such an intelligent player in the final third. I think the way he's able to make decisions has only got better in recent years, especially as he played more in his favoured position. I think Gibbs-White is kind of still the standout player for them, feels so much like an instrumental player. But Wood too is a threat inside the box if Chelsea aerially are not as good. And defensively, Chelsea haven't been that rigid. I mean, we've conceded 4 goals in our last 2 games at Stamford Bridge. That needs to tighten up, absolutely. But to be fair to Chelsea, we did keep 2 clean sheets before then, so the team has shown that they can keep clean sheets. But I think it's going to be important in what I suspect will be a tighter game. I don't think Forest are going to come to Stamford Bridge and play on the halfway line, or their defensive line is going to be there as Brighton did last week. It's suicidal, as was the case for Brighton. You just do not allow Chelsea that amount of space with the pace we have in transition. And I think that's going to be the big test for Enzo Maresca's team. I think this is going to be a game where Chelsea are going to have a lot more of the ball, I suspect. At times, there's going to be periods where Chelsea are going to have to try and break through a mid to low block of Forest. And it's how Chelsea deal with that. Because I think Chelsea have done very well so far is very much hitting teams on the counter. Are Chelsea intelligent enough? Can they do enough to maybe lure Forest out a little bit? Give them that confidence to get out of that low block and then hopefully spring and find those spaces in behind them. I think seeing how Chelsea work around that is going to be big, because I feel like if there's one thing that a Chelsea coach has had to solve in recent years that few have actually been able to solve, is how you deal with low blocks, because it is just a reality. You have to be able to counteract it if you want to be a big team. So seeing how that works obviously is aided by some good personnel too that we're going to get to with our starting lineup. Let me know yours in the comments below, because my starting lineup is not going to be too different. I go back to a similar thing of, it's a winning team. Things are going well at the moment, and both teams, I keep on saying both teams, but the team in the Premier League and the B team are kind of playing well. So they're pushing each other, and that's a good thing. It's just, I don't think there's going to be radical transformation in terms of personnel, because I also look at the minutes that were given to that B team, and it kind of made me feel that Maresca was very much looking to rest a lot of his first team. And I think that's what we'll see, at least at the start of this Conference League to Premier League schedule. So I think Sanchez will start in goal. Yes, I had major problems with his performance last week. Hopefully Sanchez reverts to what he was, at least for the start of the season. But I still have major concerns in the long term. But we haven't seen enough of Jorgensen, or at least I haven't personally. I mean, of course, Maresca will see him in training every day, but I can't really honestly sit here and tell you that Jorgensen has done enough so far to make me think, yeah, he needs to absolutely be in front of Robert Sanchez. Whether, like with Petrovic this time last year, that will become more relevant in the upcoming weeks, I think we'll see. Then the back 4 is kind of the standard one at the moment. Gusto, Fofana, Colwill, Cucurella. I would say that Vega will maybe feel a little bit hard done by. I thought he had a really good performance against Ghent. But I just feel Cucurella isn't really doing much wrong at the moment. I think he's still adding a fire to this Chelsea team, an urge and a spark sometimes in central midfield, very much being combative. Maybe you'll look at Wood, you'll look at the game, the type of game it is, and feel that Vega at set pieces or kind of aerially will do a bit better than Cucurella. But I also think this is a game where Chelsea will have a lot of the ball. So I just feel that Cucurella will stay in the team. Then we get in central midfield. I don't think there'll be much rotation here. Yes, we have Lavia back, but I think Caicedo, who's been arguably He can't be Chelsea's best player so far this season because I think everyone will say rightly Cole Palmer. But I mean, in terms of second place so far, Caicedo is right there in terms of performance. He's been amazing in terms of, in some chaotic moments as we saw last week, still being dominant, winning the ball back, making really effective passes up front for Chelsea. And he's made such a difference to our central midfield. Let's hope that continues. Enzo Fernandez, I think, again, just wanting to see a more convincing all-round performance from him. I don't think I've seen a complete Enzo Fernandez performance. I've seen bits of a really good performance, but there have been lulls within there. So I think, obviously, hopefully for him, where Chelsea have a lot of the ball, this is really where he should come to the fore and perform. Then we get into the three behind a striker. I am going to make one alteration. And I wasn't going to, because I was pretty happy with the team that started last week, as you can see already. I just wonder if Pedro Neto has done enough to get himself in the starting 11. Because, from his point of view, and Madueke, of course, hasn't quite hit the heights of that Wolves game, which was always going to be difficult for him. But he, of course, had a few chances to score. And I still think his movement, his energy, his speed is something that's going to be effective against a lot of teams. But I just think Neto one-on-one, and also I feel Neto against a deeper defence. Neto is maybe not praised enough for his delivery and his passing. I actually think that's a threat of his game that I've seen in glimpses for Chelsea. Of course, he did score. It was one of those kind of classic winger goals where he's using his speed in behind a slower defence. I think it's more in this game going to be when he receives the ball one-on-one, making good decisions, maybe crossing the ball into that 6-yard box with real purpose and real direction, and that could really unlock Nottingham Forest. So I feel that maybe Neto's the one who stands out that may, in that attack, have done enough to earn himself a start as a Wolves player against Nottingham Forest. Palmer, obviously, Palmer again. Already a shirt being sold based on that game. That's how amazing it was in such record time. Listen, he's the guy at the moment, and if Palmer's there, if he's at the same level, it's very hard for opposing teams to stop him. And to have a player where we can say that with some confidence is, of course, a blessing. It really is. Jadon Sancho, I also think had a really strong game. I hope that first Chelsea goal is coming for him, because I think all round his performances and kind of creativity merits that goal to kind of really solidify it. But all round, I think Sancho has had a real positive and impactful start for Chelsea. I think he's nailed down that left side so far. And then, of course, Nicholas Jackson, who didn't get on the score sheet, but I also think had an all-round positive performance. To quickly shout out my Substack, if you haven't checked it out, it will be in the description of both the podcast, but also on YouTube. Regularly putting out pieces where we discuss things that I do talk about on the show. Sometimes I'll basically take a video I've made or a shot I've made and turn it into a written piece. But this week it was all about Nicholas Jackson. I wanted to make it last week, but I was a little bit crammed with work. So this week it's all about Jackson basically, and actually adding to what I was going to do already based on that Brighton game. So talking about how brilliant Nicholas Jackson is. So some flowers for Jackson. So please go and read that and subscribe to the Substack. It's free to do if you haven't already, and share it around with friends. So that is it for the team selector. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.